everyone, welcome to Bible Verse Breakdown. I'm Ewaenruwa Nomaren, and in this video we are going to be breaking down the verse, Psalms chapter 103 verse 19, which reads, "The Lord hath prepared his throne in the heavens, and his kingdom ruleth over all." Firstly, what does it mean for God to prepare his throne in the heavens? What's a throne exactly in this context? Well, it's certainly not a chair, because God Almighty is a spirit person, according to John chapter 4, verse 24. And he lives in heaven. Therefore, just as how a physical throne represents a king's authority, sovereignty, and supremacy over the land, that's basically what God's throne is. It's representing his rule and his control over what happens both in heaven and, of course, on earth as well. If you look at Isaiah chapter 66 verse 1, he said, "Heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool." Obviously, it's not that God's legs physically travel down to the earth. No, it's the fact that just as how God has complete control and he's sovereign in heaven, he's also sovereign here. And if you watch our video on A Pace to Fear God, God's principle number 3, the question of sovereignty, we talked a lot about that. And if you read Ezekiel chapter 1, verses 26 and 28, a vision was given to Ezekiel and he saw a throne in heaven, meaning that God has authority there. Then the word heaven, we shouldn't always think about heaven as a abode, because the Bible describes heaven in different ways. And in this particular verse, that is Psalms chapter 103 verse 19, it's talking about God Almighty's authority being on top, being above all others. If you read Isaiah chapter 57 verse 15, it mentioned this. "For thus saith the high and lofty one, that inhabiteth eternity, whose name is holy. I dwell in a high and holy place, with him also that is of a contrite and humble spirit," and so on. So it's talking about not a physical highness, but him being on top, him being above everything else, above all other thrones or nations. If you read Psalms chapter 97 verse 9, it describes this, that God Almighty is above all other gods. In Psalms chapter 95 verse 3, it states, "For the Lord is a great God and a great King above all gods." And then when it said, "and his kingdom ruleth over all," it's talking about how his dominion, his authority, it stretches to all ends of the earth, meaning that there's no place or person who is not under God's authority or is not under God's sovereignty. No, he controls everything, because both heaven and earth are his property, according to Isaiah chapter 45 and verses 12 and 18, and he controls what lives in his space or in his property. If you look at the kingdom of Solomon, you can see that this sovereignty and authority that we're talking about was demonstrated in a physical light. If you read 1 Chronicles chapter 29 verse 23, it was stated explicitly that King Solomon sat on the throne of God. That's sovereignty, that supremacy that God Almighty has. He gave a small portion of it to King Solomon, which was why his kingdom prevailed over all the other kingdoms around him, according to 1 Kings chapter 4 from verses 21 to 24. So anytime God is involved in something, then ultimately that thing is now sovereign. It becomes supreme over everything else. And the kingdom that God Almighty promised to put in the hands of his son, according to Daniel chapter 7 verse 14, would also have dominion over all parts of the world. "He shall have dominion also from sea to sea, and from the river unto the ends of the earth." And if you read Revelation chapter 11 verse 15, it was stated that the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of the Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. So God Almighty put his sovereignty and his authority into the hands of his son, because he loved his son, according to John chapter 3 verse 35. "For the Father loved the Son, and hath given all things into his hand." So the fact of the matter is, God Almighty's authority and sovereignty is above all other thrones or dominions, and it rules over everyone and over all nations. And that is where I'm going to stop on discussing that verse, Psalms chapter 103, verse 19, which once again reads, "The Lord hath prepared his throne in the heavens, and his kingdom ruleth over all." If you have enjoyed this video, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you will be notified when we come back with our next verse breakdown. Have a great day, and God bless you.